Welcome to United in Stormwind, also known as the most powerful expansion Hearthstone has ever received. I'm going to let you take a little bit of a guess here at the start. What year do you think this was?
Most powerful set ever. Let's go middle of the road. Let's say 2019.
Close. It was 2021. You are aware of what quests are. You've seen quests. I've shown you
those before.
One of these cards from this set. Do you remember what card it was?
Wasn't it that Warlock one?
Yes, it is. It is the Warlock quest line, which is the Demon Seed. I'm going to show you the rest of these quest lines. This is arguably the most powerful mechanic that has ever been released because of how it warped the game around them. Okay. Unlike a lot of other win conditions that can be very good, because quest lines always started in your hand, if they were very good, they just made the game feel very similar. So not only are you getting a very powerful card, you're getting a very consistent game plan, which allowed some of these quest lines to be absolutely egregious, which I showed you before. I will show you the Demon Seed again for you to have comparison. You already know that this card is disgusting, but just to remind you.
Now I do.
Here, just a reminder, this is what it was in case you want to go through that whole shenanigans again.
It was a lot. All right, so Demon Seed starts off as a 1 mana card that always starts in your hand, correct?
Yes, always starts in your hand.
Quest line. Take 6 damage on your turns, reward lifesteal, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. And then the upgrade is you take 7 damage on your turns and the same thing. And then the third is take 8 damage on your turns, and that gives you Blightborn Tamsin, which is a 5 mana 7/7 for the rest of the game. Damage you take on your turn damages your opponent instead.
I'm going to show you the rest of these quest lines. Now, your job today is to tell me whether or not you think this was nerfed, but also how good you think the card was in standard. Because a lot of these quest lines, not only in United and Stormwind, did make an impact throughout its entire time in standard, but the question is, was it nerfed or not? I'm also not going to play any games here. I'm going to go through it in class order. So you have nothing else to think about whether or not you think this card is broken. I am very curious to hear what you think about a lot of these coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh player.
1 mana, Final Showdown. Questline, draw 4 cards in 1 turn. Reward, reduce the cost of the cards drawn by 1. Okay, so you have to draw 4 cards in a turn, and then reduce the cost of the cards drawn by 1. So you're only reducing those specific cards drawn. Those 4 cards, yes?
Yes, those 4 cards,
okay. Tier 2, I don't know how you designate these. Part 2 of the quest, whatever. Draw 5 cards in 1 turn. It's so funny reading this, by the way, just from a Yu-Gi-Oh player's perspective, because it's like, that would just never happen most of the time, but anyway.
Yeah.
Reward, reduce the cost of those cards drawn by 1. Okay, so it seems like that's the same. And then close the portal, draw 5 more cards in a turn, and then your reward is Demon Slayer Kurtrus. 5 mana 7/7. Are these all 5 mana 7/7s, or is that, I guess,
I don't think all of them are. I could be wrong. I think
well, it's funny because the other one was too. That's why. But anyway, battle cry for the rest of the game. Cards you draw cost 2 less. Ooh, does that count even just your draw phase too?
That count, yeah. That also means any card, like you could shuffle your hand back into your deck, and all those cards would cost less as well at that point.
That's neat. See, this is like one of the fun things about Hearthstone, right? Is that like the tracking stuff is just, like, you can't do that in a physical card game. Like you could try, but it just
you'd lose your mind manually. So I was gonna say that you could just treat all these cards as one Yu-Gi-Oh card, because this is pretty much the exact same attacks that you guys have currently. So
pretty much, yeah. Except we put this on 1 card frame somehow. Exactly. So yeah. Well, you did say Demon Hunter, card draw is one of its things. And obviously I doubt they'd make a quest around that mechanic if that wasn't something that could be easily done. I think you also showed me a card a few episodes ago that was just like, it was like draw 4 cards or something like that Demon Hunter has. I don't remember, but something like that. Drawing cards is good. Reducing the cost of cards is good. So that already seems pretty good. I think like the biggest downside to this is the fact that you have to draw all the cards in a single turn, because like then you kind of get in this situation where you play like a bit suboptimally, right? Where it's like, okay, I have a draw spell, but because it's not going to trigger the next phase of the quest, like I'm going to save the draw spell till I get like another draw spell, and then I can actually like do that. Does that matter? I don't know. Maybe. So I guess that's the tough part, is I don't know like how easily it is for you guys to do that, because again, like drawing cards in Yu-Gi-Oh is just like not something that happens so frequently. But I know in Hearthstone, you guys give them away like candy.
Yes.
So I guess I can try to evaluate the big guy too. Having everything you draw for the rest of the game only costing 2 just seems insane. Like that seems really good. Do I think it was nerfed? Oh God, that's a whole nother question. So They would have to nerf this how? They'd probably say like cards, they could nerf the big guy and say like cards you draw cost 2 less instead of like costing 3 less or something. They could have nerfed it and make it that the quest lines require more cards. So maybe it was like, before it was like draw 3 instead of draw 4 or draw 5 or something like that. That would be my assumption to what they would nerf if they nerfed anything. Do I think they would do that? If the draw power is so free in Demon Hunter that when they created this card, they thought, oh, this is probably balanced enough. And then people were abusing the hell out of this. And then they're like, okay, this is too good. We need to like nerf this somehow. I could see that happening. And I feel like Hearthstone probably has enough card draw to maybe see that happen. So sure, I'll say it was a nerf.
Okay, interesting. So this card's actually like a lot of the cards I'm going to show you today were not only prevalent in Stormwind, but also for the remaining of their standard. Also the remainder of the time they were in standard, right? We have to think about it as like the next 2 years they're in the game, right? When this card was released, people were laughing at it because it's a lot. Like that's a lot to get through. And I think at the time we saw this card, we saw a lot of the other quest lines. So it's like, why did Demon Hunter get this? There is one thing you may have overlooked here is you naturally draw 1 card at the start of your turn. So that is only 3, 4, 4, not 4, 5, 5.
Okay.
So that is a big thing. Unfortunately for Demon Hunter, this questline did not really see a ton of play during Stormwind. This card was very, very like really difficult to pull off. And I think like the dream is really there for this card. Like, you know, it's an insane amount of mana cheat if you can get there. There's so much high hopes for Demon Hunter from what we've seen before. Actually, fuck the class. I hate it with all its guts. I'm really glad it wasn't playable during this time. But almost before it rotated, there was a deck that this questline was in. And because of how powerful the deck was and how fast you could draw through, it was actually really easy to get your questline done by turn 5, turn 6. And you can imagine if you're playing Demon Slayer Kurtrus on turn 5, turn 6, you're probably winning that game. Like you're probably winning. It is very unlikely that you're going to lose this game. Now, is that like Demon Hunter got a lot of density of draw? There was a spell archetype that you could play it in, which allowed you to draw even more cards and still fight for the board just because of how it was done. It also allowed you to go for some really gross combos because of the amount of mana cheating you could do. So Demon Hunter in its classic way would draw a bunch of cards, discount them, kill you from hand. That's pretty much what it would do. This card was nerfed. The last expansion it was in standard, it was nerfed.
Lost in the Park, very cute. Questline, gain 4 attack with your hero, reward, gain 5 armor. Gain 4 attack with your hero. Okay, and Druid hero powers +1 attack, +1 armor, 2 mana, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Defend the squirrels. I love this. I just like the flavor of this. This is fun. Gain 5 attack with your hero, reward, gain 5 armor, and draw a card. Okay. Feral Frenzy. Gain 6 attack with your hero. Reward is Guff the Tough. And then Guff the Tough is a 5 mana 8/8, not 7/7. With Taunt. Battle Cry. Give your hero +8 attack and +8 armor this turn. Or +8 attack this turn and gain 8 armor. So obviously your hero power can obviously fuel this, which is a plus. I don't recall, from the little I did play this game, I don't recall how often it was that Druid was giving it like itself attack buffs. I think there was there was that combo that was really good in Druid. What was the card? Savage Roar?
Savage Roar, yeah. At this point in time, Savage Roar is not in standard, but I will show you one card for this.
Okay, so there's obviously plenty of other ways to, and I figure there's other ways to give your things attack that they probably printed in the same set. Like they're going to try to give you tools to do the cool thing, right? That's the whole point. I will say of the 3 effects, Guff the Tough seems like the least impressive of the 3. Like giving your guy +8 attack and gaining 8 armor is like not nothing, but it's not like particularly impressive. It is a taunt, so it's like a big guy too. You could basically look at it as +8 attack to like remove stuff because there's no summoning sickness there. That's fine, but like from what I've learned with doing some of these other videos, I don't think that's like as good as it could be. So that's you
don't think 8 attack is as good as discounting your entire deck by 2 mana?
Yeah, just weird. Just for some reason I think that. I don't know why. It's also Druid, so like if anything, like you can also just like very easily like cheat this, not cheat necessarily, but you're able to get to this guy a lot quicker than like other archetypes would be able to. And so especially if the metagame is very aggressive, like you're saying, that could be beneficial, especially you're gaining all the armor and gaining like a taunt guy. Like I said, I don't think it's bad. It's just, I think it's one of the instances of it doesn't seem flashy, but it seems like good. if that makes sense. And it's one of those things where it's like a card's very innocuous looking because it's like what's a good example? Like what's the Death Knight, the Gul'dan Death Knight that like resurrects all the demons? It's not like that, right? You don't see it and you don't get like super excited for it, but it's like I think it's just maybe an example of just a good value card.
See, that's a good reminder though. Remember what you said when you saw the Druid Death Knight. Remember, it wasn't a flashy effect.
Right.
It was just a good card. What was it?
The Paladin ship thing.
The Leviathan, yeah.
Leviathan. That was another example. I'm putting this card like in that, or this, like all of this. I'm putting all of this like in that camp. Like I think this is like fine. So that's where I'm at. Do I think this had to be nerfed? I would be surprised if this had to be nerfed. So if it did, I'm very interested to hear why. So let's hear it.
This one's weird because this is the first time you're going to see one of these quest lines that doesn't have an ongoing effect after it's played. Right. Lost in the Park was it was lost. Like I'll put it like that. It didn't see a ton of play. It was a really weird quest line. There was moments in Standard where it ended up being pretty good because this is one of the few quest lines that you really want to bounce back to your hand if you can, or find a way to replay the battle cry. Because with a card like Brand Bronzebeard, if you double the battle cry, all of a sudden you got 16 attack, right? Like, and you can do a lot with this. And this card did see, I'm not gonna say this card was outright bad. It did see play. It just was never like a dominant enough effect where like it had to be nerfed or even really looked at to be nerfed.
Sure. Defend the Dwarven District. Deal damage with 2 spells. Reward, your hero power can target minions. Ooh, that's fun. Okay. Deal damage with 2 spells. All right. Then take the high ground, deal damage with 2 spells. Reward, set the cost of your hero power to 0. Okay, we're gaming. Knock them down, deal damage with 2 spells. Reward, Tavish Master Marksman. And he is a 5-mana 7/7. Battle cry for the rest of the game. Spells you cast refresh your hero power. Okay, so clearly they were trying to make you want to play a certain deck with this. Like this is like Spell Hunter written all over it.
Sure.
That's really cool. The fact that your hero power becomes 0, the fact that it can target minions, and then anytime you play a spell, it like refreshes your hero power. That's the, like, if there is a high enough density of spells, like I don't know if Spell Hunter is a thing. It's kind of weird because like Hunter, I kind of feel like it'd be more minion based, but this is like making you want to go spell based, but maybe that's what the set wanted to encourage you to do. Whatever. This seems like this would be cracked. If there's like the deck to support this seems like it would be just like insane. I think this, like a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people like Hunter. So I think a lot of people really like this if it was there. And I would not be surprised if they had to find a way to nerf this. So that's where I'm at on this one.
Okay, so this card was really interesting. Shadow Reaper Anduin's a really good like comparison because of just how the deck ended up playing out. But the biggest thing about this card compared to Shadow Reaper Anduin is this started in your opening hand, which is
you don't
really,
have to draw it.
You don't have to draw it. And I'll just say it right now. Hunter had enough density of cards for this to be playable. And I'm going to talk about design philosophy here really fast before we get into how good this card was. Do you think this card was fun? Do
I think this card was fun?
Do you think this is a good card to have in your game?
I think it was fun for the person who was playing it. That's card games, right? I want to play my stuff. I want to, do stuff that make my opponent mad. That's how it goes. So I think if you're playing it, it was fun. Do I think it should be in the game? Probably not, because I imagine if you're turning Hunter into a fucking Gatling gun to just mow all your opponent's stuff down and they never get to play the game, that's probably not necessarily fun for the opponent, I would say.
Yes.
I imagine the mirror matches for this were hilarious, by the way.
So, I didn't really play this card too much because I'm not a huge fan of this card, so I couldn't really tell you what was going on. This card, in my opinion, and I have to be like, I've probably mentioned this before at some point. This is my least favorite expansion by far. I fucking hated this expansion. I still hate it to this day. I remember just thinking about this. This is one of the reasons. This card enabled a play pattern that I think is just probably the worst example of what Hearthstone gameplay can be. Hearthstone is, I want to say, in my opinion at least, should be focused more on board tension, like having minion-based combat. When you add a card like this into the game, it supports an archetype that doesn't want to play any minions. In fact, it just wants to hit you with burn spells or your minions with burn spells so they can just kill you out of the game.
Yeah, this is literally burn. Yeah.
It is, but because it's so consistent, you never really get, because it starts in your opening hand, you don't get that moment before you draw your Shadow Reaper Anduin where you actually have to fight for the board. It's just, do I have enough burn spells to get my quest done? And then on top of that, enough spells to kill you afterwards. This card was nerfed. The first part of it was nerfed. They made it in 1 year later for a different set because there's more burn spells in the game. Higher critical mass of burn spells mean this deck gets better. So they changed it from dealing damage with 2 spells to 3 spells.
Sorcerer's Gambit. Cast a Fire, Frost, and Arcane spell. Reward, draw a card. Okay, so I imagine those are... Did they have those types when I used to play?
No.
I remember there was like they didn't. Okay, so they assigned those later. Questline, cast a Fire, Frost, and Arcane spell. Reward, discover 1. Okay, so discover 1 of those 3.
I think it is just one of those 3. Yeah, like you just
right.
Get
So they'll show you a Fire, Frost, Arcane spell.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Reach the portal room, cast a Fire, Frost, and Arcane spell. Reward Arcanist Dawn Grasp, which is a 5 mana 7/7. Battle cry for the rest of the game. You have spell damage plus. See, this is the thing with the Druid one, right? Like the Druid one has no for the rest of the game effect. I haven't seen the rest of them yet, but they all the rest of them seem to have some broken thing like this. Okay, so this is like similar to the Hunter thing where you're just playing some sort of spell mage, but I mean mage with spells. Weird. I feel like they'd probably have those. This one's tough because I feel like it's pretty conditional. The fact that you need to cast a Fire, Frost, and Arcane. I feel like when you start running the math on the way you build your deck and like the likelihood you're going to see Fire, Frost, and Arcane spells, that could be really frustrating, right? Because like there could be a world where, well, I don't know. You guys have so much draw power and like discoverability stuff that like maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking. But I'm thinking of a world, right, where you cast a Fire and a Frost spell, and then you don't have an Arcane spell to cast, and you're just stuck on the quest, and you can't progress it forward. Whereas the Hunter one was so crazy. It's just like, oh yeah, just deal damage with your spells, whatever. So I think that's, to me, the biggest limiting factor here. Now, to be fair, your reward for the first phase is to draw a spell, and drawing a spell comes from your deck, so you probably are going to have the types of spells you need to do that. And then the second tier is discovering one, so you're going to get one for the third one. So they're like helping you get to the next stage. Okay, where are you going to be by the time you play this guy, right? You've already used all these spells to ideally clean up a lot of the board, or like, I guess you would, send stuff to your opponent's face, whatever. So where are you going to be by the time you play this? Like, you're just going to have all your spells are just like giga buffed, and then like maybe you just kill your opponent that way. That's like kind of how I'm seeing this playing out. Like, you could keep controlling the board because Mage is like, from what I understand, typically like good at doing that, but you have to like win the game eventually. And like, he seems good, but it's not like, yeah, like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem as impressive. So I actually, if it's better than the Druid one, I almost want to say the Druid one's better, but I always want to say that just because I feel like it's easier to resolve the Druid one. I don't know. Maybe it's like the payoff is still good enough. I'll say if it's better than the Druid one, it's just slightly.
So this card was very good.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that you're probably like, this is obviously I'm hindsight Andrew over here and you don't have all the information, but sure. Mage has a lot of draw, like an absurd amount of draw compared to a class like Hunter, right? So you're right. There will be moments where like, you're like, oh, where's my Frost spell? I can't progress my quest, but that doesn't happen probably as often as you think it would happen. That if my opponent went quest line into a character's flow, I'm pretty sure I'm conceding at that point. Like there's no point for me to play this game. So Mage's biggest problem was the critical mass of spells, but during Stormwind, they already had enough spells in the game that you could easily do this. It wasn't even a problem. And because of how easy it was to do, Dawngrasp, just like Tavish, caused a huge polarization in the metagame. Because if you're a slower deck, like let's say you're trying to just defend yourself against whatever you're playing against, and you went against Mage, you lost. There's nothing you can do. The game was over. So they decided to nerf Dawngrasp to +2 mana, or +2 spell damage, I should say. But the bigger nerf to this deck was actually Incanter's Flow, because they decided to finally nerf this fucking card to 3 mana at that point in time. Now, I showed you Incanter's Flow at 4 mana. This card was nerfed the following expansion as well because it ended up being so good. And that's insane. One of the stupidest things about Incanter's Flow was the way it interacted with Refreshing Spring Water. Because if you discounted Refreshing Spring Water to 3 mana, let's say, it gave you a mana back and you drew 2 cards.
Rise to the occasion. Questline, play 3 different 1-cost cards, equip a 1/4 Light's Justice. Is that just a 1/4 weapon?
Yeah,
I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's just 1/4 weapon.
No effect or anything? Got it.
No,
all right.
No,
Pave the way, play 3 different 1-cost cards. Upgrade your hero power. What does it upgrade to?
Upgrades to summon 2 1/1 dudes.
2 1/1 dudes instead of a 1/1. Okay.
Yep.
Avenge the Fallen, play 3 different 1-cost cards. Reward is Lightborn Cariel,
Yep.
Which is a 5 mana 7/7. Battle cry for the rest of the game. Your Silver Hand recruits have +2/+2. Okay, time for Alex's shitty Paladin takes, part 50. I feel like, okay, I think the Paladin cards are so hard to evaluate just because Yu-Gi-Oh, especially now, fundamentally is just so different from like Hearthstone, is that like Paladin's such a board-centric archetype from what it seems like, that it's just, those are the hardest cards I think for me to evaluate because our games are just so different.
Makes sense.
Okay, so you play this, you have to play 3 different 1-cost cards, which means you're not going to be able to complete this quest unless there's like mana cheating in Paladin until turn 3 at the earliest for that part, to give you a 1/4 weapon. And that's like fine. Paladin, I imagine, has like buffs and stuff for that. And then you can like fight for the board that way. Cool. So then you have to play 3 more 1-cost cards. It's turn 3. So you can't do that minimum until turn 4. Again, not counting mana cheating or anything, because you'd have 2 mana still from turn 3, and then you'd have to use 1 mana from turn 4 to get there, and then you upgrade your hero power, and then you have to play 3 more cards, which you could do that all in turn 4, and then hypothetically you could do that in turn 5, assuming you have all those cards to spend, which I think I've said way more than your actual hand size at this point. You're summoning 6 stats worth of guys for 2 mana every turn. I mean, that seems like okay. For 2 mana, if anything, that seems good. And especially not to mention there's any other cards that can like synergize with this stuff. Then you're just like always winning on the board at that point. Like my Yu-Gi-Oh brain is just like, that's just like so bad. It just seems so bad.
So I will say, I feel like Paladin, especially with you, is funny because I think CGB has like the opposite approach. Like Paladin's not
he
the
plays
most
Magic. It makes sense. Yeah, I think that actually makes sense though.
I was gonna say from like, I'm not gonna even say flavor. It's more from like an effect. Like I feel like Paladin doesn't have flashy effects for the most part. They're very just like consistent.
They're just good value stuff.
Yeah, they just do their thing. And I can understand why it's like when you look at a card like this, you're like, what the why? Like, do I even care?
Right.
So I understand why you feel this way about Paladin, but don't get it twisted, bro. Paladin's been good. Like Paladin is.
No, I'm not saying it's been bad. I've learned like how good it is.
That's
but
fair,
like, here's the other part too. It's like you need like 9 1-cost cards as well to
that is fair.
get to this point. Like that's also a lot of cards, and it's a lot of 1-cost cards specifically. And you're not just going to play 9 1-cost cards if you're going to try to play a deck like this, right? You'd play a lot more than that because you need to see them consistently enough.
Yes. So I will say that there are cards in the standard format as well as it is in standard that will, or sorry, while the whole time it was in standard, that was 1 mana that would discover another 1 mana card.
It was probably this was probably good. I don't think this had to be nerfed. But again, like I feel like it's so hard for me to evaluate the Paladin cards. So I will happily be wrong. You're going to be like, this was the best deck. No one was playing anything else during the time. So yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. So Paladin got one of the more interesting ones because like you've seen before, the ones that have an ongoing effect appear to be better, right?
Right.
I've only showed you Guff, so you haven't got to see the other ones that is just a one-time effect. But Cariel's is a little bit more interesting because you have to spend 2 mana every single time to really get that effect. The one thing you're probably not considering is if you already have Silver Hand recruits on board, they get the buff, which is effectively giving your Silver Hand recruits charge or +2/+2s, not charge, sorry. Which could be very, very good, right? Like that is more pressure you're putting onto your opponent. During Unite and Stormwind, this card was off. Like, how are you playing this card when Mages exist? How are you playing this card when Hunter exists? How are you playing this card when Demon Seed exists? Like, you're gonna play a bunch of 1-drops? Oh no!
Yeah, what compared to those, this does not seem very impressive.
The other really bad thing about this deck is, unfortunately, your quest does not count as a 1-drop. So you're in this really weird spot of like you're skipping your turn 1, but you want to get this going as fast as possible. And like, if you don't drop Cariel on 5, you're just kind of not doing enough. So this card never saw play in Stormwind. But throughout the rest of the time in standard, it was also just as garbage because there's infinitely more stuff you could do that just stronger, especially in a class like Paladin, which had a lot of really great ways of finishing off the game. This was absolutely pointless.
Okay. Seek Guidance, play a 2, 3, and 4 cost card. Reward, discover a card from your deck. Discover the Void Shard. Play a 5 and 6 cost card. Discover a card from your deck. And then Illuminate the Void. Play a 7 and 8 cost card. And your reward is Xyrella the Sanctified. Cool name. 5 mana, 7/7 again with Taunt. Battlecry, shuffle the Purified Shard into your deck. And the Purified Shard is a 10 mana card that says destroy the enemy hero.
So I'm going to give you a little bit can I just like say this to you? Because this is probably one of the coolest things.
Sure.
When they were going through their card reveals, I'm like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the first one they showed for quest lines.
Really?
So like you saw this, you're like, what the fuck are they doing this expansion, right? Really, really cool line of text. I believe that is one of the first times we've ever seen that on a card.
Yeah, so this is an alternate win con. You have to play just 1 through 10 in order, which is very funny. I mean, if we're talking about like Christmas land, that's like my first instinct
Christmas.
Here. But
yeah, I can see what you mean. So this one's really like this is a lot more of like design here, because like it's interesting, right? Like to have an effect like this in the game, it does feel like you need to go through a lot of hoops to just have the line of text destroy the enemy hero.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like Yu-Gi-Oh's no stranger to alternate win conditions, and to no surprise, they're all bad and unplayable. But I mean, this is Hearthstone, so I need to think of it that way. 2, 3, and 4 cost card, you get a card, and then 5 and 6. I'm trying to think, like, in the absolute best case scenario, like, yeah, sure, I know there's, like, ways around this, but you have to play the right cost card on curve every single turn for 10 turns. But it's not even that, because after you play your 7 and 8 cost card, you get Xyrella, and then Xyrella you play for 5 on 9, and then shuffles the shard into the deck, and then you would have to draw the shard immediately after for turn 10, unless there's like some way to search the card out or like draw it or something, and then play that on turn 10. And that's like the best case scenario, obviously. And you're gonna tell me like, oh, there's like all these ways you can like accelerate this and cheat this out, and this is like the best thing you could have been doing during this time. I don't know. I eagerly look forward to you telling me that this was like the best thing Priest could have been doing. But I think this is like, you are seriously like delusional if you think that this is like, from like Yu-Gi-Oh perspective, this is like, this would never happen. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, this would never happen. So
I mean, it's a different world over there for sure.
It is.
I'm not even gonna compare this to the rest of the quest lines because I don't think it's fair.
It's so unique. It's so unique.
It's its own thing. So let's go through what deck wants to run this quest line, right? This isn't going in an aggro deck. You're putting this in a control priest deck, which so happens to be the most prominent way you want to build priest. So the next question is, you're going to be running 2, 3 costs, 4 costs. You're going to be running those type of cards anyways in your priest deck. So by adding this card in, you give yourself a win condition. Regardless of what the matchup is, you still have this win condition in the back of your hand. Now, ask yourself, do you need this quest line every single time? Probably not, right? Some games against control priest, the game is over before you even play Xyrella, right? They just controlled you, you lost the game. But by always having this inevitability in the back of their hand, I'm going to call it, even though it's not really in their hand, it really adds some kind of pressure to your opponent to actually do something to kill the priest. Now, I've shown you a bunch of different ways currently in United and Stormwind where you're going to die. And I showed you the mage one. So you could probably guess during United and Stormwind, this wasn't that good. Let's be real here. This in Stormwind.
Thank God.
Like in Stormwind, this wasn't bad. But again, we're talking for the next 2 years here.
Right.
At some point in time, was this actually good? No, it was not. It was
okay.
It was, so I'm not gonna say it was unplayable. I think the Paladin one was still the worst one by far in terms of standard. At least I don't know how good the Paladin was in Wild. Right. So cool card, not the greatest, unfortunately. Was not nerfed, obviously. All right.
That was going to be my biggest thing though, is that like if you were going to play this as like that alt win condition in the, you know, for your inevitability, just play better cards that are going to just control the game better. You don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of look at it. Find the imposter. Play 2 SI7 cards and then reward, add a spy gift. I feel like Rogue, they always add all these like weird cards to the archetype to like do stuff like this. But anyway, add a spy gizmo to your hand. Learn the truth, play 2 SI7 cards, add a spy gizmo to your hand. Mark the traitor, play 2 SI7 cards, reward spy master scabs Master Scabs is a 5-mana 7/7. Battlecry, add 1 of each spy gizmo to your hand. And of course, there's like 50 gizmos I have to read now. Thanks.
Sorry. This is
Reading
the Yugioh
simulator.
payback.
Undercover Mole, very funny. 1 mana, 2/3 stealth. After this attacks, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. It's kind of cool. Spy-O-Matic, Battlecry, 1 mana, 3/2. Look at 3 cards in your opponent's deck. Pick 1 to put on top. Noggin Fog Generator. Is that how you say that? You say we have weird names.
Noggin Fog is correct, yeah.
1 mana, give a minion +2 attack and stealth. Hidden Gyro Blade, 1 mana, 3/2 weapon. Death Rattle, throw this at a random enemy minion. That's cute. And then 1 mana, Fizz Flash Distractor. Return an enemy minion to its owner's hand. They can play it next turn.
They can't play it.
They can't play it next turn. Excuse me. I just want to say this is bad because there's like way too many things going on here. Like, I don't even want to evaluate this, honestly. Like, I'm reading this and I'm just like, I'm like disinterested just reading this.
Really? Okay.
It seems like they're trying so hard to like do whatever this is. And then it's just like, it's going to be bad. That's like almost like the vibe I'm getting here from this, but I'll try. What are the SI7 cards? That's what these 5 things you showed me.
Without actually like showing you all of them, so you don't have to read every single one.
Oh, there's more. Good.
There's cards that they printed for this set that are called SI7s, which is like,
okay,
you're like, it's like kind of like a Yu-Gi-Oh thing, right? Like where they have a name that kind of follows the same tradition.
Okay.
Where it's like there's like SI Agent, SI Operative, like all those cards. So there's enough of these that it's very easy to complete this quest line if you're gonna go for this. And some of them are like cost 1 less for each SI you played, and then combo destroy an enemy minion. Like that's like one of the better ones. This card was very easy to like complete if that's what you're curious. And the average power level of SI cards in the standard format were fine. Like they were good enough to play if you wanted to play this.
I guess like they do have the combo potential with Rogue because they're also cheap, right? Like because all of these cost 1, so like that's a benefit that I could see potentially.
Remember Shadow Step as well, for the record. Think Shadow Step's a very important part of this as well. Well, like it is.
Now, when you add a spy gizmo, is it random or do you pick?
It's random. It is random.
That's a lot worse. It sucks that it's random because you could just get the card that's like the worst of the 5 every time and just like then you're just like not happy about it.
I feel like this is one of the random effects though where like every one of these is like playable.
Yeah, they're all playable, but it's all board contextual, right? Because it's like sometimes maybe 3 of the 5 are good and you don't want to hit the other 2 and you hit the other 2 and you just like Alt F4. I'll say it's fine. I'll say it was like, there's probably some deck you would like build around this and it was like average, but like, was this the best thing Rogue could be doing? I'm going to go with no.
Okay. So this one's actually, how to describe this? This is a very loaded question because this one, when Stormwind first released was not great because obviously what I've showed you so far, there are way
trend.
There are cards that just fucking kill you. So like, what am I doing gizmos for? But after like those got nerfed, this card actually was pretty decent. It had a chance on. You're talking like contextually. I understand what you mean, but a lot of the time, any one of these you got, you were actually really happy with. But the real thing about this was like, just like the Druid one, sometimes it's just not enough to get gizmos. Like you needed like a little bit more, and that's what kind of the issue was with this. But Spy Master Scabs was a really powerful card because this whole deck is based around tempo, right? Because you have to play SI7 agents to go through your quest line. And as you're playing them, you're getting more gizmos, which fights to the board more. And by the time you get to Scabs, you go Spy Master Scabs into the stealthing, so he's there on board and your opponent has nothing. Like they can't interact with it. So all of a sudden you have a 9/7 on board that has stealth. And then your opponent's like, okay, if I don't clear the board or I get some way to actually stop them from hitting me, I'm gonna die. And that's what it often came down to.
Alrighty. Command the Elements. That's a cool art. Play 3 cards with Overload. Reward, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. Ooh, that's cool. Stir the Stones. Play 3 cards with Overload. Reward, summon a 3/3 elemental with Taunt. Tame the Flames. Play 2 cards with Overload. Reward is Stormcaller Brucon. And he is a 5-mana 7/7. Battlecry, for the rest of this game, your spells cast twice. That seems really good. So this one seems pretty cool. I like the fact that I wish like all of them unlocked your overloaded mana crystals. I think it's like, for the second one, it's like, oh, you get a 3/3 elemental with Taunt. Like, who fucking cares? Give me my mana back so I can play more overloaded stuff.
Fair enough.
That just seems like so random that's like how they went from stage 1 to stage 2, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. Overloaded cards are obviously what Shaman wants to play. They're some of the best cards that they have access to. Is there a high enough density of those cards to like actually do this? I think that's kind of like the recurring theme I'm noticing as we're doing this, is that I would assume yes. It seems like that's typically the case with a lot of these. So I'm going to go under that assumption here. How would they nerf this? Make it that you just have to play more overloaded cards? That would be like my first guess. I can see this being nerfed. I feel like this guy is like just nuts. I feel like this guy's insane.
Okay, before I tell you if it was nerfed or not, do you think it's better than the Mage one? Or sorry, do you think it's better than the Hunter one?
Better than the Hunter one.
Because I'll be honest with you, you already know what the best one is. You already know what the best one is. So I can't ask you if you think it was better than Warlock.
Yeah. I guess that's tough because just having to play spells, it's just spells that deal damage, right? That was the Hunter one. That I feel like is a much easier condition to fulfill than having to play like overloaded stuff specifically. Not that there aren't ways to like circumvent the overloaded part, but I feel like both of these could be like equally as egregious. Like I feel like they could both be really bad. Just like in different ways and just be like annoying for like the same kind of reason though.
Okay. This card was nerfed. The third quest line of this, the Tame the Flame ones, was 3 cards instead of 2.
So they just upped it by 1 extra over. That was enough? That was enough?
It actually was, because your mana crystals would be so weird, like it would be off. It would delay you by at least a turn, which is the biggest thing. Here's the last one. If you don't get this right, you have learned nothing over this video.
Excellent. Oh, great. Warrior. I forgot. My favorite. All right. Raid the docks. Questline, play 3 pirates. Reward, draw a weapon. Questline, play 2 pirates. Reward, deal 2 damage to a random enemy twice. Create a distraction is that one. Secure the supplies. Play 2 pirates. Reward is Captain Rakara. And she's a 5-mana 7/7. Summon the Juggernaut. Start of your turn. Summon a pirate, equip a warrior weapon, and fire 2 cannons that deal 2 damage. Okay. This is kind of cool. I like the flavor of this. This is fun.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Now, here's the question. Was Nessie out at the same time?
So Nessie came out 2 expansions later.
Okay, just curious. Because that matters for the pirates, because I know that card's good. It also seems there's plenty of pirates that are crazy, especially with warrior. So this does not seem difficult to do in the slightest. Drawing a weapon with warrior is also very good.
So I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here in case you forgot to. Mr. Smite was added in the mini set of this expansion. So
okay, then 2 months. This was probably very good. I'm going to go ahead and guess the way this is going.
Okay, so that's what I meant. Like, I was gonna say, if you remember the Colossal video, like this one, I think is, I told you in that video I'd have to show you this card at some point. Raid the Docks ended up being a pretty great card. And the thing about this one, just like the, what was the other one? The Hunter one, maybe? Hold on, let me go back here. Yeah, just like the Hunter one, like it's a pretty easy deck to fulfill, like your request, because you put this in a deck with a bunch of pirates, and then you play your pirates that are already fighting for board.
And you might have already played the pirates anyway because they're good. Right?
Yeah, and then you get Rakara, and Rakara's a 5-mana 7/7, which just fits the board, and it's a pirate. And then also you get a reoccurring effect every single turn that does damage. You get even more damage with the weapon, and you summon a pirate, which I believe could summon Mr. Smite. I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe it could.
Even so, this still seems crazy regardless.
So I'm going to ask you a question here, because you do know this was played. I showed you in a different video, Nelly, which was from Sunken City.
Yes.
Do you think this card was nerfed?
Especially with what you were saying with how aggro this set was, I wouldn't be surprised if this got nerfed. Like maybe they just upped how many pirates you had to play in order to fulfill the condition to slow it down a bit. That would be my guess. So I'll go with that.
So you're right. It was nerfed. You think it was nerfed twice?
They nerfed it twice? If you're asking me, sure.
So this card was nerfed twice. It was nerfed in, I believe,
that's
United
insane.
and Stormwind. Hold on, let me double check. No, it was nerfed in Alterac Valley, and then which is the expansion after. And then when Nelly came out, they nerfed it again because it was just too easy, bro. So let's just recap this for you. This is the most powerful Hearthstone set. This is just, I haven't even showed you the rest of the cards of this set. This is just the quest lines.
Yeah.
If we go through this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Six out of the 10
Six
quest
of the
lines were
10.
nerfed, which is fucking insane. Like, that is crazy. And imagine every one of these games, if you were playing one of these quest lines, which again, it's the prominent mechanic of this set. You saw
like you just win
every game consistently. Every game played the exact same way. It was fucking horrible.
I guess that's like the double-edged sword of the quests, right? It's like in theory they're cool, but like when every game sort of like is just like telegraphed and just plays out the exact same way every time, that's kind of the downside, right?
So it's a downside if the reoccurring effect is not fun to play against.
Right.
Which is why when you looked at the rogue one, it's interesting because yeah, you're right. It's a lot less boring. It's more boring, I should say, than the other ones because the effect isn't as flashy, but that one was the most balanced. And so was the Druid one because you don't have this reoccurring effect. And in Ungoro, if you go back all the way, there is the one quest line that was the worst is the rogue one, which had an ongoing effect. It's almost like you could look at why these are problems and we shouldn't design cards like these. I don't know. Like maybe we look at history, there's a problem here. But yeah, this is this set was fucking ridiculous. And I haven't even shown you the rest of these cards. I only show you the quest lines here. So at a different point, I will show you the rest of this set. Do you think Stormcaller Brukan would be played in Yu-Gi-Oh?
Do I think it's interesting?
That's a good question, right? Because it's only spell cards.
We have a couple cards that do like double damaging type effects, and I would say for the most part those aren't really played. I think they'd only be played if there's like a specific like FTK that you would want to just kill your opponent on the first turn without them playing. So actually, like as far as Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, it's weird because oh wait, hold on, it's your spells cast twice. It's not like I thought it was double damage. I'm sorry.
No,
I think I was getting confused with the Mage one. I think I was getting them conflated. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Your spells cast twice. I don't know how like situationally it would work, but if there was a thing that just like duplicated all spells you played the rest of the game, and it was like consistent enough that you could just like access that would be 100% broken. Not even close. Okay. Because spell cards are already so pushed in Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be nuts. It'd be a cool design space to explore, but after what you guys have experienced, maybe we shouldn't explore that.
Don't. I wish YouTube had the ability to do a poll in the comment sections of your videos because I would do a poll. I would do a poll to show. I would ask the question of like, how did you find United in Stormwind? And I think majority of people would tell you that this was the worst expansion of all time. Like it was so unfun. It's like I'll tell you like a little short story. When I went to BlizzCon last year, I won't say any names, but I remember talking to developers being like, they didn't want to admit it was a mistake, but like they learned from it is what they told me, which is very funny. It's just a fucking mess.